you very much for being here.
My pleasure. And good morning, everyone. I'm surprised with how cold it is up here today. How do you guys cope with that? Really? Okay. Yeah. You don't cope. Okay. I like being able to peel off layers coming into a lovely room like this. That's lovely. So I've got about 2 hours to share with you this morning some, I guess, practical tips about how you can take children's safety messages to the classroom. So I'm going to start off with, I guess, setting the scene in terms of what are some of the risks facing children, what I think all protective adults need to know, and then getting into 4 particular safety messages. But it's a little bit special today that I'm going to be seeking some particular input from you about 2 new safety initiatives that we're proposing. So I work with an advisory board who are so I've got some very accomplished people on the advisory board. Bob Atkinson, the former Commissioner of the Police, who was one of the commissioners for the Royal Commission into Institutionalised Child Sexual Abuse, Professor Kerry-Anne Walsh from QUT, Education Faculty, Jennifer Sanderson, who's done some work with Griffith, but also worked for the Queensland Family and Child Commission. And I've got a High Court judge, just coincidentally, from Fiji, Rangajiva Wilhelmsena. So these people are working with me to look at some initiatives we can potentially introduce to not only Queensland but Australia. And we're not actually sure with these particular 2 how they're going to fly. So I'm going to play you a 5-minute video as we get toward the end of this presentation. And I just want your honesty. If you think that there are a whole lot of concerns that you have, I'd really love to hear them. If you think that there's a lot of potential, I'd love to hear that too. So just sort of forewarning you about that. Start off with a disclaimer though, just to let you know that what I'm going to share with you with the stats and the general information, it's based on current research, but it doesn't constitute legal advice. I also want to let you know that some of the content of the presentation, some people might find disturbing. So if you do feel uncomfortable, please feel free to take a breather outside. I'll touch base with you afterwards. This is a subject that affects a lot of people for a number of different reasons. So just to give you the heads up there that some people might feel a little bit uncomfortable. Your role of teachers, though, is I would suggest the most important, possibly second to parenting in terms of preserving or optimising safety of children. It is an incredible opportunity that you have, because when those parents and protective adults at home fail their children, you guys are the only constant often in a child's life to be able to recognise signs, to be able to report, to be able to even if there's nothing happening at home, bless you. Don't apologise. A child with a low self-esteem has got you as teachers have such an opportunity to impact on a child's life success through words you say, through actions you make, through recognition. So I just want to really acknowledge that from the get-go, that you've chosen an amazing profession. I chose policing as my career, but absolutely teaching would have been my, and I've got a compulsory age retirement, and I'm looking at finishing a teaching degree because I just really value what you do, and I think it really helps, it's an opportunity to promote these messages on a daily basis. So the purpose of today is to equip you with an awareness of risks, key safety messages and support strategies to maximise children's safety. What do you think, how good a job do you think we do in Australia in terms of keeping kids safe? I'm kind of leading you a little bit because I'm going to share some prevalent stats with you. And unfortunately, can you just look to the back of the room for the sec? People online, can I acknowledge the people online as well? Hello, and I'll try to acknowledge you. I'm just going to flick through this so I can get to the next one. Okay, look up. So here are some safety risks of children and young people. I'm going to go through some general prevalent stats just to give you an outline, and then I'm going to ask you the question before. So very poorly organised presentation, Rod, forgive me. So in terms of child abuse, so physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse and neglect, often abuse and neglect are grouped together. A child in Australia, this is a 2017 stat, is reported abused or neglected every 1.5 minutes. Okay, so we've got and this is a really conservative estimate, that 10 to 20% of Australian children are being abused or neglected on an annual basis. That's about 550,000 children. So that's important to know in terms of when you look at a classroom of children, you're lucky not to have, you will be very likely, let's say, to have a child that is impacted by abuse in your classroom at a time. So be aware of that. Bullying. So a stat that I was just reading recently was about 1 in 4 children from years 4 to 9 are bullied on a frequent basis. And most often the kids that are bullied in person are also bullied online. So just something to be aware of. There's not generally a online only or an in-person. It often goes across both methods. Witnessing domestic violence. So children who witness domestic violence are 2 to 4 times more likely to be in a violent relationship in their adulthood. That's either as a victim or an offender. So experiencing that as a child, unfortunately, it doesn't mean they're destined to have a shitty, violent upbringing, a life after their upbringing, but it certainly puts them in a much higher likelihood. Anxiety and depression, suicide and self-harm, I'll mention these together. I was reading a stat, and the stats that I'm reading you, I've got a handout that I forwarded to Rod this morning, that you will have the source documents of where these come from. But it says that almost a fifth of children aged 11 to 17 are suffering high or very high levels of psychological stress. And in terms of self-harm and suicide, I think it's from kids aged 12 to 17, about 1 in 10 will self-harm, about 1 in 13 will seriously consider suicide, and 1 in 40 will actually attempt suicide. So let me take you back to the slide before now and look at obstacles to preventing, like for us protecting kids. So would you agree from the prevalence rates that I just shared that as a child in Australia, it's not from a people safety point of view, and that's particularly unknown people in their lives, we're not doing as good as we could do. Would you agree? What do you think some of the obstacles might be as to why we're not doing a better job, why those prevalence rates are so high in relation to the abuse, the bullying, the domestic violence? Any thoughts? Yeah.
Like trained or equipped. Like some of the things there are options out there, but it's not even a compulsory thing to go through those kind of training, how to deal with situations like that and how to notice those like clues and pick up on the.
Yeah. Are you talking as teachers?
As teachers.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely that's a valid point. And that's why I'm so privileged to come and do this session with you guys to kind of bring it on your radar. Yeah.
Obstacle would be the child themselves. A lot of kids don't want to share what happens. Looking for someone that they can confide in. The person that they confide in is someone they trust, and if it's something to do with an adult, they're not going to trust adults.
Yeah.
Trust friends.
Absolutely. So that's bullying. Yeah. I'm going to come back to what Rachel was saying in a second in terms of why children are reluctant and why is that trust an issue. But 2 questions, or 2 comments. You.
I'd say the platform in which a lot of the abuse takes place, I don't think there's a lot of expertise in how to navigate the prevention of that. So, how are we as teachers or schools, policymakers able to equip kids with the capacity to turn off their device to disengage from bullying or abuse that might be happening online?
Yeah, really good point. What's your name?
Joe.
Thanks, Joe. Yes.
I wonder maybe from a teacher's perspective, obviously I'm not one yet, but, the busyness of their classroom might just get too much that they're actually just oblivious to the signs.
Yeah.
That they're just going, I don't know, maybe it's, I hope this isn't the case, but maybe it's just too much to think about right now. I need to do this, or without sort of saying it's an inconvenience, maybe they're just too focused on ticking everything off.
Yeah, doing what needs to be done from an expectation of your role.
Able to take that step back and go, okay, what are my kids? How are they? What's their life like?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What's your name?
Ashley.
Thanks, Ashley. And Robin?
Maybe just the sheer numbers is an obstacle for us protecting. There's so many more students being affected than there are teachers and other support people to provide the help that they need.
Yep.
So many cases go through this process.
And I think your name.
Ash.
Ash.
Also, for me, as a society, maybe don't value the importance of how serious it is.
Yeah.
Also, like bystander syndrome, where people think someone else has reported it.
That's such a good point. Absolutely. Yeah. Not only that someone else has reported it, we have this horrible statistic that I think it's about a third of parents would not believe a child if the child came to them and told them that they were being sexually abused. That is appalling, that there is that, you know, sort of prejudgment beforehand. And when we talk about grooming and stuff shortly, that will really, I guess, you can see how easy it gives the green light for offenders from that perspective. Okay, so some of the obstacles, you've mentioned some of these, I'll explain some of the others. So I'm going to kind of touch on, I guess, the underlying stuff about, as Rachel mentioned, that kids actually not coming forward themselves as to why they might not. So ignorance, just that we don't know. Often people don't know the prevalence rates that I just mentioned to you. So they don't know that the vast majority of risk to their child's safety as a parent or as teachers is from someone known to the child. So we have, you know, what would you consider to be the most common safety message when you were a kid? Yeah, stranger danger. That is the most obvious, and it is the least likely form of risk to a child. It still occasionally happens, so we can't dismiss it from, you know, being thought about, but it often is the focal point for people, for parents, and often for teachers who aren't aware. So that ignorance is big. Relaying time-honoured yet ineffective safety messages. And I'll share with you why I firmly believe stranger danger falls into that category, not just because the vast minority is from strangers, but for a number of reasons there as well. I'm happy to share these slides as well and a handout. So please take notes, and that's great. But just to let you know that a lot of, I've got, I think, a 12-page handout that I've forwarded to Rod to pass on. So it's got a lot of gear on it. Embarrassment, particularly when we're talking about body ownership principles. So having to say the word penis or vagina to a classroom of kids, a lot of people find that really uncomfortable, but it should be as natural to us as saying elbow or, you know, shoulders. It's to remove the taboo, to remove the secrecy and the promoting the likelihood people will disclose. You know, we need to be able to speak about these things openly. This is just a part of your body, and someone's done the wrong thing. They've broken the rules that we know about private parts.
Is that even the case for those young primary classes? Like, you know, where is that line? Because as a primary trained teacher, you know, I'm a year 1 or 2 class, like, is that inappropriate?
For you to actually use the anatomically correct words, it probably will come, depending on if you're state schools, there is the Daniel Morcombe Children's Safety Curriculum, which is endorsed by Education Queensland, and that does include all anatomically correct terms. So that's good to know. For independent Catholic schools, it's probably at the schools, you know, to I guess, clarify with the school. Yes, Rachel?
I was just going to say, like, on a recent placement I went to, I was actually granted the opportunity to be involved in the risky behaviours talk with local high school students, but that school particularly is a P to 12, and they introduced the early introduction to understanding consent from grade all the way through grade 12, and it is the teachers that they use the anatomically correct terms, but they do it in a way that children are going to understand, and so that a way that, like, there's no confusion and there's no uncomfortable nature around if they had to disclose that with a parent or with a teacher, because it's removing, like you said, removing the taboo of this is something you're not allowed to talk about, and just saying that, like, there's nothing wrong with using their proper names because it is natural, it is normal.
Yeah, and there are so many pet names that parents teach kids, which creates a taboo, because the pet name that my parent may have taught me, the teacher may have no idea that my flower or my, you know, whatever, I'm actually talking about private parts of my body. So saying, you know, somebody touched my flower, well, put your flower away, you know, it's not understood. So using it in a way that is natural and removes that taboo is really key. But embarrassment, in terms of addressing some of this thing, the body ownership things is a big thing for some teachers and for a lot of parents as well, let me tell you. Protecting a child's innocence. So sometimes parents particularly think that if we teach kids that sometimes people can break the rules about private parts of the body, that kind of somehow taints the child or corrupts them, and they kind of know that these things happen. By doing it in a confidence building way where we just talk about no one's allowed to hit you. You know, we talk about respect for self and others and how that looks and you know, how that how we promote our own safety and the safety of other people. This is just in the context of that. We've got rules about, a whole lot of things, and we've got rules about our private parts. It's just some of the rules, and if we introduce it in a really natural, confidence-building way, that this is just the facts, that we need to be aware of. There is nothing, we're not sort of, making it really spooky or dark, and we're not talking about sex and the act of intercourse. We're talking about people touching parts of your body, making you touch someone else's body, showing you rude pictures, taking photos of your body or videos, that sort of stuff. So it's pretty factual, light stuff that we're actually talking about. We're not going into the ins and outs, if you will, of what sex is. So what will really corrupt a child and take away their innocence is if we don't educate them, which unfortunately makes them very attractive for offenders, because offenders then get to write the script about what this is all about and tell them tell the child what the fact is when, that's not the fact. A lack of time and reliance on other people. So sometimes parents think that's the school's responsibility. I don't have to worry about this. Johnny will learn about it at school. And some teachers, it's a parent's responsibility. Of course, it's a parent's responsibility, but as teachers, you need to realise that a lot of parents are not going to be responsible in teaching their kids about this. So you are the safety net, that really important safety net that a lot of kids have, and it will help to reinforce what the parents that are responsible in teaching this, what they're teaching at home. They're going to get that reinforced message from you in the classroom. For the kids that don't get it at home, brilliant opportunity for them. Okay, so we've gone through these quite scary stats. What protective adults, so bearing in mind what the obstacles are and what the risks are, this is, I guess, the take of what I believe people need to know. So the type and nature of the risk, so what risks exist, how does it happen? So I'm going to go through particularly child sexual abuse with you this morning because that's the least known. Most people know a little bit more about emotional abuse, physical abuse, neglect. It's often parents and carers, and often it's not premeditated. I'm actually stealing a slide's content from a couple of slides away. I'll shut up there. Methods used by offenders, which differs from different types of abuse, as we'll talk about, the physical and behavioural indicators. So I don't have time this morning to go through a whole lot of that with you, but I believe in the handout there's some information there about physical and behavioural indicators. True relationships, previously Family Planning Queensland, they've got some fabulous resources on this, looking at traffic lights, so looking at a green, normal behaviour, orange, starting to be concerning, red, very concerning behaviours. So if you're not sure if a child's exhibiting some sort of behaviour and you think, is that normal? What should I be doing about it? This particular resource from True Relationships, you can get hold of it. I believe it's available online, will be a really great guide. I've got a copy of it in my bag, but I've got one copy. Dangerous messages and practices. I put that there because often what people know, their knowledge of children's safety is based on really flawed messages that they were often received as a kid or that they heard growing up. So it's to set the record straight to say, hey, this is why these are dangerous. Key safety message. So what actually should we be teaching kids? And they're the 4 messages I'm going to be sharing with you. And they're based on research. They're based on what we know globally of what actually works. And support strategies. So how to create a safe and supportive environment and how we actually handle disclosures of abuse. That's super important because we can do more damage, can you believe, than the abuse itself by poorly handling a disclosure. That makes it a super critical thing to do it properly. So I will cover that this morning as well. So abuse similarities and differences. I'm going to spoon feed you a bit because I'm trying to get through the content a bit more. So I've got time for my selfish reason at the end for the safety initiatives feedback from you. So non-sexual abuse, so physical abuse, emotional abuse, and neglect. Mostly committed by parents and carers. Mostly it's a pattern. It's not something that happens once. That's just poor parenting. If it happens on an ongoing basis, that kind of becomes abusive. Mostly unplanned spontaneous acts. So parents don't think, how am I going to emotionally abuse my child? How am I going to, remove their self-esteem and make them feel like crap? They don't think about that. That's just poor parenting. It's a whole lot of contributing factors, which is immaturity. It might be mental health. It might be drug and alcohol use. It might, there are so many factors that impact on why parents aren't great parents, frankly. Maybe the unintended result of physical punishment, and that can come down to a cultural thing. So just by way of an example, I spent some time in Samoa developing or setting up a crime prevention unit, and it was my experience over there, and I pinpoint this only because I've lived there and worked with Samoans, that physical punishment was very big on that. That's how you discipline children, but often children were hospitalised, not only at the hands of parents, but at the hands of teachers and pastors as a result of physical punishment. So I would suggest that that's crossed the line. It's maybe not intended to be physical abuse. It was intended to be punishment. But, yeah, you don't hospitalise kids for a physical punishment. Sexual abuse is different, still mostly committed by known people. So it broadens not just parents, carers, it is friends of the family. It's teachers, it's coaches, it's pastors, it's tutors, it's babysitters is a big one as well. Anyone who has an opportunity, and unfortunately offenders will often find a way where they can access children through voluntary or paid work. And that's just the fact of the matter. They have a motivation. These ones, there's nothing that they're getting as a result of physically abusing a child, emotionally abusing a child, neglecting a child. It's just, kind of life. There is sexual gratification from sexually abusing a child. So that's what it's about. Not only in the actual act, but also in the grooming. Often sex offenders will get off on knowing that they've got the parents' trust, they've got the child's trust, building that initially non-sexual relationship, knowing full well what they're intending to do as the relationship continues. That's if it's a groom process over a while. That doesn't necessarily have to take place over time. It can be an immediate thing as well. It is generally premeditated, often involves a grooming process and secrecy. Someone mentioned secrecy before. Yeah, absolutely. That's probably one of the number one weapons used by sex offenders, secrecy. The likelihood that kids won't disclose and that they will, be threatened, be coerced, be, made to feel that this is something that they shouldn't tell anybody. And it's the most underreported of all crimes. I didn't mention the prevalence of child sexual abuse particularly before, but it's estimated, this is from Professor Frida Briggs from the University of South Australia. She was my mentor. She passed away a few years ago, but she has been in her life a police officer, social worker, teacher, but academic for the majority of her life. And she just had such a heart for children. She did a lot of work with child sex offenders in prisons. So and she was an older lady when she was doing this research in prison. So she really got to have a good understanding of sex offenders and how they operate. And I guess was able to get, I think, a different insight to other researchers in terms of how they get to prevalence rates. So Frida suggests that a third of children before they leave school will experience sexual abuse. And it's been suggested that 5 to 10% is serious abuse. So sexual abuse might be someone flashing a child in a park. That might be an example. It might be inappropriate touching one time, or it could be systematic abuse by a parent, step-parent, relative, coach over a period of years that may involve penetrative abuse. So there is a very big scale when we talk about sexual abuse. So just bear that in mind as well. And that 5 to 10% being that severe end of the scale. So this is a bit of a quiz for you. Are most offenders known or unknown? Who's been listening? Known. So for child sexual abuse, about 90% are known. Are most offenders likely to be children or adults? We haven't spoken about this yet. Adults? What percentage do you think might be children? What proportion? Any thoughts? What's your name? Marcus. You're exactly right. A third committed by other young people. So be alert to the behaviour of kids in your class to other kids. It may be because they have been abused themselves. It may be because they've witnessed abuse of somebody else. There are a number of underlying factors. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's the case, but it often means that's the case. So be alert to child-on-child abuse as well. Are men or women more likely to sexually abuse kids? Any gut feels? Yeah. Predominantly men, but a lot of people actually dismiss that females could be sex offenders at all. So it's really important to remember that for abusers of boys, women represent about 1 in 5, about 20%. Abusers of girls, 1 in 20, about 5%. So less likely, particularly for girls. But some people think, if I leave my kids in the care of a woman, like a babysitter or whatever, that kind of removes that risk. Certainly not the case. So just, are they likely to have a criminal history? No. So we've got blue cards, which is great, child suitability cards, which is good, but bearing in mind that about 95% rather, don't have a criminal history, most are going to have access to a blue card. So it's a good safeguard, but it's absolutely far from a full, it's a 5% success rate safeguard if you look at our stats. Okay, so the grooming process, what can you tell me what you know about the grooming process for sexual abuse? Have you covered this at all? Or have any awareness through, I guess, any... Yes, Rachel?
The child is made to feel like it is a normal
Yes.
appearance.
Yep.
What they're doing should feel okay and that it's appropriate. They shouldn't tell anyone because it's their little secret.
Yep.
If they do tell someone that they'll get in trouble,
Absolutely. Yeah, that's pretty accurate. So offenders often adopt a grooming process not only to groom the target child, but the target's parents, because if the parent is seen by the child to have a good relationship with this person, it makes them far less likely to disclose, because the child unfortunately quite rightly thinks that the parents will believe the abuser over the child, and that is super sadly what often happens. So some of the things include giving attention and non-sexual touching. So that's often how the relationship starts. And sex offenders are often amongst the most charming people who have got this great rapport with kids, which is horrible for people who actually do, because me teaching this stuff, I'm so on to anyone who, I've got a very tainted view of the world because I'm aware of this, and I don't want you to have that, but I want you to be aware of that. Park it, have the awareness of risks, but know that so many more people who work on, well with kids, you guys, have, this is a small proportion. Often seek time alone with the child. That can be a real giveaway. It might be private lessons that let Johnny stay behind, and I'm going to teach him more, piano or soccer or camping away or something like that. But time away doesn't always happen with the child alone. It can happen in a group setting. So kids, siblings particularly, can be abused in a group setting. That happens a lot. Friends can be abused together, but generally speaking, alone, it just segregates the child, makes it less likely for them to disclose. I don't know why that's come up from the bottom. Silence children with gifts, threats, emotional blackmail or violence. Develop a special relationship. So we'll talk about what makes a child more attractive shortly, but it's having, giving a child who might not normally have attention, giving them that attention, making them feel special, and, that's the real, unfortunately, selling point. Exposure to pornography, talk about sexual topics. So with Rachel saying, it's normalising that this happens. So there is a whole lot of really off animations, for example, that offenders will play kids that have adults and children engaging in sexual acts. And because it's done as an animation with little night music and, making it very child friendly in the way it's done very strategically by offenders to con the child into thinking that this is normal. Offenders will use excuses like, I'm teaching you how your body works. This is how I show you that I love you. And we know that a sexual touch is a positive. It's a nice touch, right, for a child and an adult. Like, someone touches us in a sexual way, we're not, even if it's not wanted, we still have that physiological response that it feels good. And offenders will use that to their advantage. It feels good, you're enjoying it, you're consenting. Not using those words generally for young kids, but that's the general, flavour of the, the con. If a boy ejaculates, that means that you've enjoyed it. That means you've consented, that sort of stuff. They use it to their advantage, which is why it's so important that when we teach kids about the private parts, that we're very concrete about this. Is no matter if it feels good, it still doesn't mean it's okay. It feels good for everybody. So letting kids know that kind of touch, no matter what, is going to feel good. So they don't need to feel bad about it actually feeling good for them. And access to kids online, obviously, a significant emerging trend. I think about recent study in Australia, 1 in 10 kids at the moment, I think it's teens, have been sent like something inappropriate. I would imagine it's actually far higher than 1 in 10, but that's just from something, that was from the Australian E-Safety Commissioner from a couple of years ago, but I think that's an underestimate of the actual prevalence. Children who are targeted. So about that special relationship, it's about perceived vulnerability. Number one, children with a low self-esteem. So they're targeting kids who just would love to feel valued and loved by somebody. Naive kids who have had little or no sex education. And when I say sex education, I'm just talking about knowing about what's appropriate, what's inappropriate in terms of rules about private parts. It's super simple stuff. Lonely, emotionally needy children, children with no significant males in their life, children who are quieter, less likely to object or put up a fight. But if you just remember the top two, the low self-esteem, and that's why the first safety message is about building a child's self-esteem. Super easy to say, just build a child's self-esteem. Really hard to do if you consider what a child's upbringing maybe have been into that point. So we'll talk about some of the things that you can do in a little bit. Okay, dangerous messages and practices. Stranger danger number one. Least likely type of risk to a child comes from someone who they don't know. By teaching a child that strangers are dangerous, when in reality, a stranger is anyone they don't know, right? And do they know most people in the world? Nah. So if they took it to the letter, and thank goodness children don't, what an incredibly fear-evoking message it is to teach them that strangers are dangerous when they look out the window at all of the strangers and, oh my God, what a horrible, dangerous place it could be. Often kids think, though, that a stranger has a particular look about them. They'll wear black, they'll have a lot of tattoos, they might have an eye patch, they'll talk in a funny voice, like the scars. It's kind of like a pirate kind of theme kind of going on. So kids have a perception that strangers look like this. They're often just men. So Frida Briggs, who I mentioned before, did a lot of work in New Zealand, and she'd go and speak to kids and she'd tell them, well, I'm a stranger, and they'd be scoffing at her. You look like my grandma. But she's a stranger. So not understanding what a stranger is. So not kind of being able to get the message anyway. So that's why not a great message. And also if children believed that strangers could potentially, even if they didn't get really freaked out about it, even if they had the general belief that strangers could be dangerous, if an adult or a protective adult that they know isn't around and they need help, it makes them far less likely to seek help from someone who they don't know. So that's a really important thing. We need kids to be able to go and reach out and get help from police, security officers, shopkeepers, other parents with children. We need to tell them who to get help from, who makes them feel safe, because there will be times in their life where, mum and dad or protective adults aren't around. They might get lost. Many different situations. Teaching a child to always obey an adult's instructions without question. That's a dangerous practice, because if an adult is making or suggesting they do something that makes them feel unsafe, it might be to do with sexual abuse, it might be just a really unsafe thing, they need to be able to question that. And if necessary, we'll talk about this in the second safety message about safety being our right, to be able to break a rule to get away. So just not accepting that as fact, that they can question it. Expectations of affection. So this is often in a family setting where relatives might be visiting. Go and give grandma a kiss. Give Uncle Bob a hug. Go on, you're embarrassing me. Expecting a child to give and receive affection against their will gives a green light to sex offenders, because we're teaching a child that adults can do that. Adults can demand affection from them. So the third message that I'm going to share with you today is my body belongs to me. So teaching kids that who they share affection with is up to the child, making sure that the person who they're wanting to share affection with consents to it. And parents particularly really need to gently be educated about the danger of expecting affection. In some cultures it's very much expected that there's hugs and kisses, a lot. And as long as the child's okay with that, there's no problem at all. But if a child feels uneasy around a relative, they don't want to do it. What would be some alternatives to hugging and kissing a relative? High five, wave, fist pump, just a verbal interaction. Hey, grandma, or whatever. There's lots of alternatives.
My son, I taught him to you know, we always like, oh, go and say goodbye, and it's up to him, and he'll go and approach the person, and he'll either go fight and walk away, or he'll give them a hug. And if they go to give him a kiss, he'll be like, I don't do kisses right now.
I love that. That's fantastic. How old's your son?
He's 5.
That's fantastic. Brilliant. Yeah, and that's exactly what Rachel does with her son. That's the benchmark of what the child feels comfortable with, and giving them the script to help tell them what to do. So to role play with kids about what would you do if someone tried to give you a kiss or tried to do this and you didn't want them. Let's act that out. You tell me what you'd say to give them the confidence. It's that role playing is a really good tool. Positivity bias, this is just human nature. A psychologist by the name of Anna Salter wrote a book called Pedophiles, Rapists, and Other Sexual Offenders, Who They Are, How They Operate, and How We Can Protect Ourselves and Our Children. And it is full of horror stories of her dealing with sex offenders, but it talks about the positivity bias that people have, that nothing like this will ever happen to my children. I know everyone in the life of my children, and none of them would ever do any of that. The principals of schools say, I know all of our parents, and they would never do that. Like, really, you're monitoring them 24/7, because that's about the only way you can guarantee that. You do not know what happens behind closed doors. You cannot guarantee the safety of the behaviour of any other person other than yourself in reality, right? So having this positivity bias, I'm not encouraging you to be paranoid. I'm encouraging you to be aware, okay, and to be able to put in place safeguards. So to protect yourself as a teacher, if a child comes into your classroom by themselves, making sure there's a door open or it's visible, like, you know, putting things in place that you cannot be potentially accused of something happening down the track, that you're always aware of potential accusations, because that's unfortunately the world that we live in, but to make it safe for that child as well. So just, I guess, bear that in mind. The policeman, and my policing background brings me to this, because I have often got this in uniform, that policewoman will take you away, and often the parent will mean it in jest, but the child often looks at police in horror, thinking that they are the bad guy and they're going to put them in jail. Yeah, so encouraging kids that police, if you're lost, they're the ones to go to. They will help you. Their job is to keep you safe. You know, that sort of thing is really important. And finally, failing to effectively prepare our kids. That's probably the most dangerous practice of all. Thinking that someone else will do it when ultimately that might never happen. Thinking that they're going to get it through osmosis or, you know, some other method. It's not going to happen unless we actively teach them. And it's not a one-off thing. That's why the beauty of your role is you get to see kids on an ongoing basis. You get to know them, and you get to share messages with them. And it might be while you're teaching other subjects. It might be these teachable moments that come up, or life incidents that happen, you know, either in the school life or in, you know, pandemic world or whatever, where you get to introduce some stuff about safety. So it's using those moments so you can to reinforce some of the key messages. And as we go through some of these messages, I think, you know, you'll get the idea of what I'm talking about. So I'm Special, So Are You is the first of the 4 safety messages. So I've brought some posters with me, but the posters I've brought, I've got the Indigenous ones that have kind of got the Indigenous way with a bit of artwork and stuff down the sides and the flags down the bottom. And I've got some teen ones. I don't have the generic ones on the screen here because I'm wanting to update them, and I'm trying to put pressure on myself to update them by not doing another print run. And I've got a whole lot of stickers. So I've got a whole lot of bookmarks for kids. The smaller bookmarks are for parents and carers that have got some information on the back about what their role is. So those things, I'll talk about the other ones as we go through. But please, I thought stickers for kids, stickers for teens. I'm happy just to leave them here for you guys to sort out later. Just take whatever you like. I hope you find those useful. But as we go through these 4 messages, that's what the stickers relate to. Okay. So I'm Special, So Are You. The purpose is to build a healthy self-esteem and encourage respect and empathy for others. The healthy self-esteem primarily because we know kids with a low self-esteem are most likely to be targeted. Healthy self-esteem, fundamental to self-protection and a person's ability to reach their potential. So that's the best gift we can give a kid, helping to boost their self-esteem. Young people with a healthy self-esteem are less likely to be targeted, more likely to resist, and more likely to disclose what's happened to them. Sorry, we're giving them a big gift in how we do that. And there's 4 components to this message. Appreciating their individuality. Any thoughts on, so you've got a classroom of kids, and it doesn't matter if it's early childhood, primary, secondary, any thoughts, any activities that you may have done through prac or that you know of that might help, I guess, encourage kids to appreciate their own individuality?
I know that in my teaching area of music, getting kids to share their artistic side and having not only you but the rest of the class praise that is a good way of building up their sense of self, but the respect that they have for themselves, because we know that the opinions of their peers developmentally is incredibly important to them. So if we can tap into that, we can help build it up.
That's fantastic. Absolutely. We'll go 1, 2.
When I'm teaching like legal studies and that kind of thing, when we have to argue, like your opinion is your opinion. It doesn't mean it's right or wrong, but you need to respect everyone else's.
Yeah. So encouraging that respect, that mutual respect of other people's opinions, being able to voice your own. Perfect.
I work in an outside school hours care, and so we actually implement every single time a new student comes to the outside school hours care, we get them to fill out an all about me page, and then we actually present it in the service, and so they just say what they like and things like that, and then we actually get them to colour a piece of it's actually like a paint, those paint samples. They stick them on the walls and they get to write things about them, and it's sort of like promoting that everyone is different and everyone has things that they like.
Actually, that's fantastic.
Yeah, so we do things like that. Yeah.
There are worksheets, 1 second, that go with each of these messages. I think I think I've got prep to year 2, year 2 to 3. It might be 5 to 7. This is back when 7 was in primary school. I'm afraid that's how long it's been since I've updated those particular lesson plans. But it's all on, so the website is childsafety.org.au. And there's a lot of worksheets. So that about me, that Ashley was just talking about, you'll find a worksheet like that. That's kind of an age appropriate version. Is it Lucy?
Even on that, I did just in a wellness class, I taught them their learning styles and stuff like that. So they did their personality test, and they did their love languages, and they did their different fruit personalities and stuff like that. And then they did even their learning styles and stuff like that, and just showing, and they had a conversation, and they had them create a business card that they could give to a teacher or a friend to go, this is how I learn best, and these are some ways that I like.
Oh, that's fantastic.
That suits me. So
that's
and
brilliant.
obviously it was really different, and they all created their own poster and put them on the walls of what they were. And
that is all. I have not, in all the time I've been here, having that much input from this is absolutely brilliant. That's great, Lucy. Thank you, Rachel.
So on my track, I'm in PE. That's my dominant area, and a lot of the time the kids are all in their sport, but the occasion there's kids that don't do a recreational sport, and so it's finding what their interest is. So on my last track, most of them were into rugby or soccer, and then there was one kid that was a cadet, and I was just like, that's okay, I'm not into rugby or soccer either. My sport's gymnastics and dance, and so just because they're all into that sort of thing, there's nothing wrong with looking at the physical side of cadets. You guys still have to do PT, and I obviously grew up in a military family, so I was able to explore their individuality and their interests and bring it into the class. How could you use this psychological technique in cadets? How could you transfer your learning into this thing, and making other kids understand that these skills are transferable outside? It's not just you have to be a sporty person to be in PE. Everyone to do PE.
Yeah.
It just branches past that.
That's fantastic. I really love what you've mentioned, and for other people listening to your classmates and adopting perhaps some of those things, I've brought with you, there's a program called Who You Are Makes a Difference. It's where you give it started off with a blue ribbon which says Who I Am Makes a Difference, and you give it to someone, and the idea is that you give them 3 then to pass on to 3 other people. So it kind of becomes this pay it forward kind of thing. And I got permission from Helise Bridges, who is the instigator of this. It came from a book called Chicken Soup for the Soul, which you may have heard about. So Helise, I did some training with her, which was on Skype a few years ago, and she gave me permission to adopt some of her resources into some other stuff. So I've got this one, which is postcard size. I've left like 3 packets there of 30, so just split them up if you want to. And this is, the idea of this is to give them to, so let's say for Joe. So Joe's in a class, and we've got everyone in the class has got one of these. So we do Dear Joe, and everyone writes a little comment about why they value Joe, why Joe makes a difference in their life. So Joe, I love your smile every day. Joe, I love playing soccer with you. Joe, I love this about you. I love, that you've always got a kind word for me, or, whatever. And at the end of the exercise, Joe gets this postcard that is jam-packed front and back with all of these positive affirmations. There's also some one-on-ones here, so you can do it individually. You were saying at the business card about this is how I learned this. This is about this is Lucy, this is why I appreciate you, and I can write a personal message to you. Clearly, you don't need a little resource like this. You can do it on any piece of paper, you can do it on an email, you can do it on a text message, but it just provides a ability to be able to do it in a formal way. I've been doing this stuff for a while, and just an A4 sheet of paper doing this kind of stuff and passing it around is pretty much just as effective as having that postcard. But the effect it has, kids keep this for years. And the chicken soup for the soul, they kept it until one of the teachers who actually taught them about this stuff, sorry, 1 second, Robin, she passed away, and they went to her funeral, and they actually pulled out that kids still had in their adulthood at this teacher who had such an impact on their life, their funeral. And they actually, in their wallet, this scuffy version, of this stuff, because it meant so much to them.
It just reminded me of what I saw at a classroom the other day. At the beginning of the year, for all the kids to get to know each other in the classroom, the teacher took a photo of the kids' faces and had it printed on an A4 piece of paper. Yeah. But what they've done is that they put them up on the window so that everyone can get to know, here's the name, here's a reminder of what their name is in their face.
Yeah.
But before he did that, he handed all the pages around to every other person.
Yeah.
And so every kid got to write a little, few little words about every other person. And I was looking at it the other day, the teacher's done it too. I can see the red pen that he's written and he's writing. He's saying, I like you because this, that, the other. You make me laugh. I like your jokes and that kind of stuff. So after they had gotten to know each other, I think of the week, the first week or two of school. Yeah, so now they've got a reminder up on the wall. They can look at their face and they can see all little
the affirmations around it.
Yeah, from all the other kids in the class.
And is that up then for the year?
Yeah, well, they're still up now.
I love that.
Yeah,
that's brilliant.
That's what's keeping the sun out of their classroom in the afternoon.
Oh,
so, yeah, it's keeping them there.
Very good. Birthdays is another thing to make kids feel special on their birthdays. I can make a big deal out of them that's their day and they get to wear a hat or everyone sings or, whatever. So lots of things we can do about appreciating individuality. Expecting respect. So I mentioned a little bit earlier how important it is that kids know what respect is, know what self-respect is, as well as respect for other people. And setting classroom rules is a really big part of that in terms of having kids involved with setting what are the rules going to be. Because if they're part of developing the rules, it's more likely to mean something to them. And if they agree with what the rules are and agree with what happens if someone breaches the rules, then you've kind of got that buy-in and they remind each other about it. So that's probably, I guess, my main go-to with that. But would you have any other thoughts about how we can encourage kids to expect respect?
You do the sort of like there's that saying like treat others how you want to be treated.
Yeah.
Do you want respect? Then give respect.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And just I'm not too sure, like just off the top of my head, of the ways at which it could be done. But if you're promoting a culture in your class that you treat others the way you want to be treated, and that is like a prevalent thing, it's there. It's everywhere on the wall, everywhere they look.
Yeah.
That could be one way of doing it.
I like that, Joe.
It was like it was mentioned before, like if someone has an opinion, just because you don't have the same opinion doesn't mean that they're right or wrong.
Yes.
It just means that you share different interests and different beliefs and they're entitled to that and you're entitled to it. And it's becoming a more, like I guess, obvious thing lately because everyone has got such different values and different belief systems. And I suppose for older kids, it's easier to understand that. But for younger kids, like I'll use my son's example. When he's being naughty, I'll be like, do you think that makes me feel really good? And he'll be like, yes. And I'm like, okay, so what would happen if I I would put him in that situation? I said, would that make you feel really good? And it's, no. And it's like, so can mummy feels good?
That's theory of mind.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
And so like younger kids, putting them in the position with it.
Like
so
that.
animating it with their toys to be like, do you think this happens? And I'm a real big believer in Paw Patrol. I love Paw Patrol. I think it's really good with showing like how you can accidentally like appreciating the individuality, like all the different characters have different things that are good or bad about them as people might perceive, but also expecting respect. Like they expect respect from each other, and in a situation they even respect the bad guy. So it's like just showing it through different things that people are going to understand. Like I love analogies, using it so that people understand in their way.
Yeah, and that's, I guess, with kids in your class, whatever they're watching, if you're aware of what they're watching and you can come to school and if they're watching, let's say, Home and Away, I don't watch Home and Away, so I don't know characters, but if something happened that's a big storyline thing at the moment, that can introduce topics of respect for self and others. Do you think that was, demonstrating respect for themselves and, that sort of stuff?
We even did, like, in some of these classes when the kids got really excited about sharing their ideas and stuff, sometimes they talk over each other and I'd be like, hang on, no, you wait till the rest of your class is ready to listen to you. And like then the kids like, oh, okay, well, I'll wait. And they'll be quiet because they'll be quiet for their classmate. They won't be quiet for me, but they'll be quiet for their classmate. That kind of thing.
That's the hierarchy. Classmates, you. Yeah.
I'll wait. And they sit there and then they get quiet like, I'm in charge of you all. Like,
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. There are some worksheets on that as well about how to demonstrate what's an example of demonstrating respect for myself. And that self-respect is so critical. If you don't respect yourself, it's difficult to respect other people. So encouraging them. And it's kids who often have a low self-esteem who aren't used to maybe being respected in the home environment that disrespect other people because they don't have that self-respect. So I guess having an understanding of the genesis of that as well. Expressing ourselves assertively. So different types of communication, passive, aggressive, and assertive, just having a general understanding of those different types. Steve Moyle, who, I don't know if anyone knows Steve Moyle, do you know Steve at all, Rob? He's a teacher at Mary MacKillop College, I understand, out here. And I once did training with a group of teachers and he was one of them, and he told me, he used the analogy of marine animals. So passive is the jellyfish that just sort of goes along with whatever. You can push a jellyfish around. A jellyfish is kind of just abused because, people walk all over the jellyfish. We don't kind of talk about the jellyfish stinging, but we just, it just sort of goes along. Passive aggressive being the eel. The really conniving, rumours behind people's backs. I'm not going to talk to Joe today, but I'm not going to tell him why. I'm going to, give someone the cold shoulder. That kind of passive. I've got a problem with Lucy, but I'm going to tell 7 other people that Lucy's a bitch rather than actually say, hey, Lucy, I got hurt feelings rather than, that sort of stuff. That's passive aggressive, not dealing with the problem in a constructive way. Aggressive, I think we all know, is the shark, right? And assertive, anyone going to guess what the animal is that Steve... What's a really nice marine animal that dolphin? Yeah, exactly. So the dolphin is assertive. It's strong, it's capable, it's friendly. But it's, it's a great, I think, what was that?
It's intelligent.
It's intelligent. Thank you, Robin. Absolutely. So using those marine animals, I think, is a really good way of framing it and even calling out and go, the way that you're speaking, Lil, is that assertive? Are you being like a dolphin, or are you, is that more of a jellyfish, or is it, that sort of stuff, so they can, for younger kids to learn. And building resilience. Have you heard of the program, the You Can Do It program at all? Michael Bernard, University of Melbourne. So there's a wonderful resources that go along with this program. And one of them is the catastrophic scale. And it goes from, I don't know if it's 1 to 100 or 0 to 100, but it talks about things, life events that can happen to us. Things like natural disasters and car accidents with injuries and all these horrible things, parents' divorce, breaking up with a boyfriend, failing a test. And it's got the scale of, like, gives it a numerical score. And when kids come in, often they think things are 99 out of 100, but the next day it's not going to rate a mention. So it's encouraging them. You're not saying, mate, that's a 3, but it's encouraging them to look at the catastrophic scale. Where do you think it might fit on that scale? When you bear in mind the broader context, Joe.
There's a similar one. I can't remember who it's by, but it's you will assess how much whatever a given circumstance will affect you in a minute, an hour, a day, a week,
yeah.
and you can then apply relevance and energy to that task,
Love it.
depending upon how important it's going to be down the track.
That is fantastic. It's probably a good one for older kids that can go get that time concept as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Rachel?
I coach gymnastics, and obviously, like, we have to do like to a degree help with mental resilience, but also physical resilience in the sense of like you will get your 3-year-old that comes up and goes, I kicked my toe, and so you go, does it need a band-aid? And I'll be like, and you're like, okay, well, can you put your big pants on and go to the office and get the band-aid for yourself, so that, like, obviously, like, you can't leave a group of kids by themselves.
Yeah.
Then as they get older, you might get the 7-year-old that goes, I kicked my toe, and you go, is it bleeding?
Yeah.
Well, do I need to amputate it? No. Okay, let's move on. And like, it's sort of like doing that sort of thing. In a way, it's like they're realizing, like, okay, I can't really be stuck over something like little. It's like, do I need to stop the lesson? Like, is this something that we need to stop the lesson? Do we need to go and get the first aid person? Do we need to go and get someone else? And like asking them those questions, like, is this a situation that we have to stop the entire program? Like, everyone in the gym has to sit down.
Yeah.
And they go, oh, well, I guess not. Like, when you've got 150 kids in one place, these kids are like, I don't think so.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like, it's getting them to assess it at a certain degree, like both on a mental and a physical thing. So like, we'll get some kids that are upset, and it'll be like, do you want to talk about it with me? Like, is this something that we need to go and get mum for? Is this something that we need to, can you sort it out with your friend? And they're like, and it's sort of getting to that stage where you build a relationship with the child, but at the same time, they get an understanding of, okay, I don't need the coach to stop the class and have a discussion about this, and I don't need them to go and get mum and dad involved. And it's sort of processing that way.
Absolutely. And other parts about resilience, it's expecting that life happens, right? And it's not, every day is not going to be rosy. The friends that you have today might not be your friends next week, tomorrow, even next year. The great teacher that you love this year, you're going to have a different teacher likely next year. So it's about coping with the change in life, and there is constant change. And, in this day and age particularly, it's about encouraging those really, positive coping skills, the problem solving, giving kids independence. We live in a society with helicopter parenting where every child wins a prize. Every child who runs in a race, I ran in a race, I get my ribbon. If you are in Pass the Parcel, you get something every time, because we couldn't possibly have someone not getting something. Like, what a crazy mixed up childhood we're giving kids, where they're totally being smothered with, you're great, you're wonderful, but we're not solving problems. You can't experience disappointment. You can't experience actually doing something independently. There's kids, and Frida again wrote a book called Smarter Parenting for Safer Kids, I think was her most recent book. She's written lots and lots of books, not hundreds, like at least tens of books. And it's talking about the disservice we're giving kids by not allowing them to experience difficulty and challenges and problem solve their way out of it, rather than us coming in and rescuing and rewarding and recognising and that sort of stuff.
I actually asked a bunch of high school students to tell me if they think it's appropriate to have participation awards and to justify why they do or don't. And a lot of them said no, like it shouldn't be. And then I said, well, I need you to clarify, like, are you talking about, a little preppy's first year ever and first ever carnival? Like, do you think it's appropriate to give them something that says I ran in a race, so they can be like, I did this? And they're like, oh yeah, that's okay. And I said, what about the following year? And they said, no, has to be straight back. And so I was like, what makes you say that way? And they said, because, when you get to that age group where you're running for a position, like in prep, it is all inclusive. Everyone needs to do it. When you get to the grade where it starts to be about, this is a competition, the kids need to understand that you're not going to win every single day. And so these boys were like really talking about, oh, okay, so you can't have this. And so they're like, because if you instill that, from all the way through school, what happens when they get to competitive nature? Like, they're going to go and have a tantrum like Serena Williams did because something was called and she didn't agree with it. Like, and they were comparing it from, okay, 5, yep, I can understand why you want to be inclusive. but then, 10, no, into your
And-
like elite level, absolutely not. So
Transpose that from a sporting arena to homework. With the amount of parents that will help do assignments for kids and stuff, not only in high school or primary high school, university, like when is a child, like can you, I've learned a lot. My kids are 17 and 16 and I have never done an assignment because I'm just like, that's tough love. That is teaching you to do your work. But I've got friends, parents that will do, help children and, oh man, I just think that is not a good service for their children for later life. Yes, they would be getting amazing results as a student, but for what cause? So just something to bear in mind. Joe?
Well, it's, like parenting and teaching, they have a great deal of applicability to each other. And our job as parents and teachers is not to give students what they want. We need to facilitate what they need. So that might involve tough love, because people that will only give a student or their child what they want, rather than what they need, they have no independence and no capacity to work for themselves. And they're a kid, so they're not going to know what they need. And not to take autonomy away from them, but you have to give them what they know they don't have.
Absolutely. And I don't want to take away, and I know I'm being really critical of some parents, but can I just acknowledge the good intentions? That they are thinking that they are doing the right thing. They are thinking that they're being incredibly loving and giving, sacrificing, but they're not seeing the long-term picture and not teaching their kids to be resilient. These kids are going to, fall down, unfortunately, when they're finally able to be resilient. So I'm just going to skip through some of these. Get to safety is my right. Quick time check. Okay. So safety is my right all day and all night. Our bodies tell us when we don't feel safe through our early warning signs, and we've got the gingerbread man with all of the bodily indicators that tell us when we're not feeling safe. If you don't feel safe, go to a safe place as soon as you can. You might need to break a rule to get away. Talk with an adult you trust about how to feel safe again, and remember to respect others' right to safety too. So it's about respect for self and others. If I don't feel safe, this is how I feel when I don't feel safe. I need to do something about it. That's essentially what this message is about. But to hit on the main points, it's about identifying and effectively responding to potentially unsafe situations. It's acknowledging we have a right to be safe with people. There are corresponding responsibilities. So if I've got a right to be safe with you and you've got a right to be safe with me, what are my responsibilities? If I've got a right to be safe with you, what do I have to do to maintain my right? Joe?
Reciprocate, the feelings and the circumstances that make you feel safe.
Yeah, so I need to make sure I'm treating you in a way that doesn't violate your feelings of safety. So, like you said before, we do to others like others do. We want others to do what we want for ourselves. Also, if someone does violate my safety, what's my responsibility then? If someone makes me feel unsafe, what should I do? Do I have a responsibility to do something?
Yes.
Well, your rights to run away.
Yeah, to get away, to say no, to actually stand up for that right. Just having a right to something doesn't guarantee safety. Yeah, that'd be nice if it, just because you had a right, everyone would respect it. But it's about standing up for your right and respecting the rights of other people as well. Safety steps going to talk about in a sec, actually the other things as well. So we have the right to be safe with people, actually breaking that down. Who is we all? Everybody, no exclusions, even the kids that we might not like. That's everybody. We all have the right to be safe with people. Have a right. Do we have to earn a right? No, it's something we just have. Are there any conditions? No, we have that right no matter what day of the week it is, no matter if we're being good, bad or indifferent, we have the right to be safe. What is safe? And we can talk about younger kids, how do you feel when you feel safe? And they'll often say things like, feel happy, loved, that kind of thing. And then we look at unsafe and the situations where they might feel unsafe. So get that context of what safe feels like and what unsafe feels like. With people, that's with anybody. So safety steps are acknowledging that we don't live in a perfect world and there's risks everywhere. But rather than, and this comes from a program called Protective Behaviours, which came from the 1970s, before any of you were born, a lady called Peg West in Wisconsin came up with this program called Protective Behaviours. It was introduced to Australia in 1985, mainly Victoria and Queensland. Peg West came out apparently wearing a cape, rumour would have it, and taught protective behaviours. So two of her principles are reflected in these messages because it was groundbreaking at the time. We all had the right and hers was feel safe with people. I've got be safe because there's a big difference between feeling and being. Anyway, we won't go into that philosophical argument, but Peg was very much promoting that kids should have a freedom to be kids and not be constricted by, I guess, like those helicopter parents that want to wrap kids in cotton wool and just put them over here and not allow them to experience life. So Peg was like, you know what? We need kids to be out being kids and loving life, but they can put in place safety steps. So if I'm going to go for a ride on my bike, let's pretend you've got 9-year-old Kim in front of you. What are some safety steps that I could put in place to make riding my bike a safer activity? Helmet. What else? Understanding road rules, maybe even going on footpath or a bike path as opposed to on the road.
Having like checkpoints, so if there's a road coming up, to make sure that they stop, say, at the tree, or giving them parameters of how far to go ahead. Absolutely. So having a plan about the route and what I need to do when I get to points.
Communicate that route to an adult so someone else knows
Absolutely.
where they're going.
Absolutely. This is where I'm going. This is going to be back. This is who I'm going to be with, maybe. Yeah, maybe having, checking that my brakes work and that I've got a bell and maybe closed-in shoes, reflective, we could go to town with all the things, but these are all safety steps to make something like that a safer activity. Think of things like going over a friend's house to play, staying over a friend's house overnight, going to a party where it's like a sleepover party. All these things you can have conversations either as a parent or teacher with kids to say, how would someone, so rather than saying, how would Olivia, how would someone make themselves feel safe if they were blah, blah? And getting it to be a discussion, as we were talking about before, people's opinions might differ and that's okay. There is no right and wrongs. There's a whole lot of things that we can talk about, how to make different situations more safe. So just keep in mind the safety steps. The safety checklist came from the Safety House program. Does anyone remember the Safety House program? I'm a safety house, yellow safety house. Yep. So it kind of died because a couple of things. Child suitability cards, because everyone in a house 18 or over had to have a card. So it got a little bit administrative heavy, and also insurance.
Is that the one where actually they've got a little thing to put on their letterbox?
Exactly, Robin.
That's
it. Yeah. It was at an age, I guess, where we had a lot of, we didn't have the double income, like both people going out. Both,
on there
exactly, more likely to have, and that's when kids were more likely to be walking to school as well, whereas rather than being dropped off by our helicopter parents.
Yeah, people.
So it was, I think it stopped in Queensland in the late 90s, maybe even early 2000s, so it hasn't been around for a while. It actually relates to one of the safety initiatives I'm going to talk with you about in a little bit. Anyway, so keep that in mind. But the Safety House program had this checklist, which I think is really good when you're deciding as a child, should I go, is it safe to do this? Do I feel safe with this person? Will a trusted adult know where I am? Oh, sorry, there are people commenting and I'm totally ignoring them. Sorry, people online. Or if you can let me know if they're... Oh, cool. Fantastic. Can I get help if I need it? So, do I feel safe? Does a trusted person know that I'm going to get a lift home with this person or go out to the park with this, going to play with this person? And can I get help if I need it? One, no, don't go. I think that still remains quite relevant now in terms of teaching kids. Early warning signs. When we saw that gingerbread man on the first poster, all of those things, we can feel those sensations in a range of types of situations. One is when it's fun to feel scared. So my roller coaster, or riding a bike down a steep hill, watching a scary movie. For some people, I actually find it probably not fun, not my choice for a scary movie. I'm not a horror kind of girl. But can you understand that sometimes it can actually be fun to be scared? Sometimes it's not fun, but it's still choice and we still have control. It might be going to the dentist. It might be getting a COVID shot. It might be sitting an exam, going to a job interview, going for your driver's license for older kids. So there's a whole lot of situations where you can be feeling all of those body sensations in the poster, feel like you need to go to the toilet, sweaty palms, heart's pumping, that sort of stuff. But it's when it's not fun and it's no control that it becomes a personal emergency. So if our bodies, we can feel that our body's telling us we feel unsafe, and we do a check and go, am I having fun? Nope. Am I in control? No. So it might be being bullied. It might be being lost. It might be being sexually abused. So a personal emergency is when we need to take action to feel safe again. We may need to break a rule. Okay, which might be leaving a classroom without asking permission. It might be kicking someone to get away. It might be, breaking a rule, which might be a school rule. It might be dobbing on someone, which we know is, not something that kids would generally do, or even adults for that matter. And to tell a trusted adult as soon as we can. So it's very different. If we're feeling unsafe, it's a personal emergency. That responsibility we have is to do something about it, to get to a safe place and to tell. And if they've got to break a rule to get away and to tell, then that's what they have to do. So having a brainstorm with kids about the situations where they might need to break a rule and what rule might they need to break is a really good way of getting them to have some context and understanding about it. And again, using that one step remove. So not what would Rachel do in this situation, but what would someone do if someone offered them drugs in the playground? What would someone do if they were being bullied online? What would someone do if their babysitter started touching them in a way that made them feel uncomfortable? That sort of stuff. And that, because it's someone, it's not someone in the class, we can talk objectively, and kids can come up with some, not only themselves come up with some really good things that they would do, but they can hear the strategies of their classmates and get the benefit of that collective wisdom and have the teacher moderate. And if there's, because some younger boys, particularly, sorry boys, will come up with, I'd karate, I'd kung fu chop them and I'd jump out the window and, that sort of stuff, to kind of moderate, not sort of call BS on it, but to kind of, just maybe that, but what are some other things? Rachel, did you have something?
I think also, particularly with younger kids, is reminding them that they're not going to get in trouble.
Yeah.
Because I know, my son will come home with a bruise and be like, what happened? He'll be like, oh, a kid pushed me and this happened. And I'll be like, did you tell your teacher?
Yeah.
And he'll be like, no. I'll be like, wow, I didn't want him to get in trouble.
Oh.
I didn't want to get in trouble. It's like, I remember that as a kid not wanting to tell my parents an emergency situation because I thought I'd get in trouble because I'd take care of myself.
Yeah.
And mum was just like, I feel like such a bad parent. And I was like, but at the same time, I had the resilience and the capability to deal with the emergency by myself.
Yeah.
I mean, it was an emergency, but I dealt with it by myself.
Yeah.
She had prepared me a different way. Yeah. So I think it's like allowing kids to understand that, yeah, you're breaking rule, but in this case, you're not going to get in trouble for breaking that rule.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Having those conversations is super important. This is something that wasn't in that Peg West program, that protective behaviours one with the Cape lady that came out to Australia. And this has been, we know from research that's taken place in the last couple of decades to be probably the most critical of the messages. And that's teaching specific rules to kids about body ownership to counter child sexual abuse. Because if we talk to kids about if someone makes you feel unsafe, we know we've got child sex offenders grooming kids, touching kids from babies sometimes. So they don't feel unsafe. They don't feel early warning signs because that's been life for them. So we need to take into account those people as well, those instances as well. So kids can feel completely safe. A child with low self-esteem who's getting this amazing love and attention for the first time, they're feeling more safe and loved than possibly they ever have in their life before, but they're being abused. So the feelings of safety is not a gauge in those situations. So they need to have another rule to kind of make up for that lack of safety, that lack of alertness of that it's unsafe. So my body belongs to me. What I do with my body and who touches me is my choice. It's not okay for anyone. So that's someone I know, someone I trust, someone I don't know, anyone to touch or look at my private parts, make me touch or look at their private parts, show me rude pictures or take photos of my private parts. If this happens, I need to say no, go to a safe place and tell an adult I trust. So no, go, tell are the 3 steps. I need to keep telling until I get the help I need. I need to respect the choices others make about their bodies too. So in a page, that is the message. We'll just break it down a little bit. So it's about identifying, preventing and stopping all forms of abuse. But I'm not going to pretend that it's not mostly about child sexual abuse because it's the most underreported and because that's the one that kids mostly don't know about. So it's about body ownership. Actually, I'm going to just go through body ownership. So not only in principle, but in practice. So that expectations of affection, that's where this really comes in, you know, that parental thing where we give affection to relatives and that sort of stuff, really important to monitor that. So our rights are about touching people, showing affection, and our responsibilities to keep safe and healthy. So we've got, you know, our body belongs to us, so we need to be aware of what our rights are and what our responsibilities are, correct names for private parts so there's no ambiguity, and to remove the taboo, that we can feel comfortable. I'll tell you a very quick story about my daughter when she was 3 in Coles, and you kept the kids at the front of the trolley. Mum, these jeans are hurting my vagina. She had no problem saying vagina loudly and proudly. Or me, which is what she calls my mother. Do you have a vagina? You know, my mother's, horrified. So we had a lot of vagina talk, you know, when my kids were young, because it was just so natural and they had no filter, and I love that. And yes, I'm sure Lani loves me talking about her to groups such as you. The importance of talking openly with children about their bodies. So it's just normal, and make it normal. If they feel normal at home, they're going to feel normal to tell you as teachers. So encouraging for you to encourage parents about, you know, how it's important. So with parent teacher, you know, at the start of the year when you have that info session, if you can factor this in at all, or even give them a bit of a handout or, you know, something, that's going to be great for that child.
When my son's school, both my kids were in primary school, they started, it might have been when the primary schools were starting to implement the Daniel Morcombe safety program, I think. But at one stage they sent home a permission slip to say this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be talking about this.
Right.
Body parts, private stuff. We're going to be talking about this with the kids. They wanted the parental permission to use to make sure that we were comfortable with the correct names for private parts.
Right.
And just to give a bit of a heads up to parents saying, you know, we're not going to be using pet names. We're not. So if your kid has a pet name, they even, I think, went to the point of sending home there was a picture of a body and it had labels of the parts.
Right.
So parents
to make sure we were in sync.
That's right. So that this is what we're teaching them at school.
Yeah.
This is what you need to know at home, so you can have a conversation with your kids at home. When you're talking about a private part, this is what we're going to be calling it. And this is, are you okay with that? Give us the signature to say you're okay with that. And we were all, you know, obviously just fine with that. But
some schools do an opt-in to get permission. Some do an opt-out. So just let us know if you're not interested. Let us know. And you know what? For the opt-outs, really important for teachers to have an understanding of what's happening with the opt-out, because that could be a red flag. Not necessarily, but it could be a red flag for that child. So just to be aware. And look for those indicators, the behavioural and physical indicators. So the parts that we go through, you'll notice that mouth is there, and that's why we're talking about oral sex. Obviously, mouth is used for a whole lot of really positive things as well as the more sinister things with kids. And that's a difficult topic, let me tell you, to cover with kids, because you might say something like, it's not okay for anyone to put anything yucky or stinky in your mouth, which I got from Frida. Do you mean broccoli? You know, like it's hard, and you don't want to say no. We're talking about a penis, like so. It's a delicate one to get around, and it will be your wisdom at the time to work out what's the best thing to say. Bearing in mind, whatever you say is going to be repeated around the playground, and it'll go home, and you know. So just I'm not going to pretend that that's an easy thing to cover sometimes, unless you want to be really explicit, and there's some concerns there as well. So rules, as was in the poster, not okay for anyone to touch or look at my private parts, make me touch or look at their private parts, show me rude pictures or take photos / video, whatever, of my private parts. So teaching kids for parents from the earliest age, as soon as they are able to hold a soaked up washer to wash themselves, dress themselves, we're making them independent and we're removing opportunities for people to abuse them by them having that independence. So let's wash our arms, and teaching kids, from the earliest age is a really positive thing. So children need to know what behaviours constitute abuse. So for child sexual abuse, someone breaking these rules, that's called sexual abuse. Abuse is wrong and it must be stopped. It is never the victim's fault. Kids will believe, often because the offender will tell them, that it's their fault for many reasons. Won't even start to tell you the stupid reasons that they'll say. It's not your fault. It's natural for sexual touching to feel good, as I spoke about before. So important for kids to know that, so they don't get conned by offenders with, it felt good, you wanted it. Victims can be anyone, offenders can be anyone as well. but are mostly someone that a child knows. Nobody deserves to be abused, and abuse can be stopped by telling someone. And it's only in the telling. And there is some amazing resources around where kids that have experienced it, they talk about disclosing and the weight that is lifted when the disclosure is handled well. So that is a particularly important slide for you to be aware of. And as we'll talk about in disclosures in a minute, the two things kids need to know if they do disclose, it's not your fault. You did the right thing by telling. Those two more than anything else. Okay, responding to abuse, no. Go, it's not, stop, it's not allowed, go, whatever the no is. Most kids are not going to have the confidence to do the no. We teach them it, but we need to be realistic to know that most kids won't actually say no because of the power dynamic, because the situation is they're going through their heads, oh my goodness, what's happening? Like it's freaking them out. So, but go to a safe place and tell someone they trust. And even if they don't do the no, it's still okay to go, even if it's a week, a month later, a year later, to tell. 50% of kids, unfortunately, won't tell anyone in their life what happened. Bob Atkinson, I interviewed him last week for a podcast we're doing for just as like a series of podcast interviews, and he was talking about being on the Royal Commission. They had 8,000 child sexual abuse survivors that came to the commission, and so many had told for the very first time in their lives to a stranger, to a commissioner, what had happened. They'd held this, and he describes it that child sexual abuse is like a violent street robbery. But rather than robbing a child of a possession, they're robbing them of their trust, of their potential, of their mental and physical health, of all of the things that this is potentially, certainly at that time, and some will recover, but a lot of kids won't. It's going to have an impact on them. And it really depends. If they can tell and get the help they need, that can be life-changing for them. So conveying this message to the kids that you interact with, that if you think something's going on, having that conversation and saying, letting them know, and that's the next message, that they can talk to you. And if something's happening, reporting the way that you can, intervening as you have to, you're mandated to do, and getting them the support they need is super, super important. So they might need to break the rules as necessary, and persistence is important in reporting, because we know that a lot of people won't believe them. And even if they are believed, some people won't take action because of the dynamic. If say they're telling someone in the home and the abuser's in the home, protecting the abuser for whatever reason, a lot of, sadly, mothers won't protect a child over a boyfriend or a step parent, which is just devastating. Exactly. So there's a lot underlying there. So that's why with the next message, actually I thought I was going to flash the next message. We'll talk about that in a second. Secrets are really important. So teaching kids about secrecy. So safe secrets, they make us feel happy and excited. So we've got Marcus's birthday coming up. What are we doing for Marcus's birthday? Or, what surprise is going to happen? There's an end date generally for a safe secret, and it makes us feel happy, excited, positive emotions. Unsafe secrets generally make us feel uncomfortable, sad, confused, angry, ashamed, negative emotions. Unsafe secrets should always be told to a trusted person. Okay? Just letting kids know that secrets, depending on the secret, it's a safe secret. Does it make you feel happy? Is there an end date? Or is it an unsafe secret? Really important to tell those. Strangers we've spoken about in terms of the type of people to get help from, so I won't go through that again, but knowing that kids can go to people that they don't know for help is important. I can get help. This is the last of the safety messages. If you feel scared, confused, sad or upset, talk with someone you trust. Develop a safety network of at least 5 adults or organisations you know who are available, will listen to you, will believe you, will help you. So we've got an example here of mum. So generally one person from the home. It could be mum or dad, or mum and dad you could have on the thumb. So one person at home. If the abuse is taking place at home and you have more, or if you have everyone on the safety network at home, you're probably not going to get objective help. So we've got granddad, who doesn't live at home. We've got a teacher, Mr. Nelson. We've got Kathy, my best friend's mum, and we've got Kids Helpline, 1-800-555-1800. So kids can have, it's up to them who's on their safety network, and this can change over time because different adults will come into their life who they will like and connect with. It might be a different teacher. It might be, a coach or whatever. They might have disappointments with people. So they'll be turfed out and they'll get a new one in. To promote the success of a safety network, it's good for the safety network member to know what their job is. So there's some activities that you can access. There's worksheets, for example, that has a little invitation. Dear Olivia, I'm learning about how to keep myself safe. I would like you to be one of my safety network members. This means if I have a problem or feel unsafe, I'll come to you. It's your job to listen to me, believe me, and to help me. Do you agree? And it basically gives a tick thing that I know that I can go to Olivia and she's agreed in writing, to be on my safety network. And if I can do that with 5 people, from a self-esteem building perspective, how cool is that for a kid to have 5 people who have signed up that they're willing to be like my support team? They're going to help me if I need help. And I might not need to approach them very often, but it's good to kind of, when I do have that conversation, hey, Olivia, can I talk to you because you're my safety network member? So Olivia knows, the child knows their language to use, and Olivia knows you've got a heads up that it's not just a conversation, any old, conversation we're going to have. It's because I need her help as a safety network member.
I also feel like it kind of makes them go, I know I'm going to be believed, because they've already agreed that they're going to believe me.
Exactly.
So I don't need to be worried that I'm not going to believe what I'm saying, because they've already said that they will.
Exactly. And with that worksheet, it'd be great if the prospective safety network members could get the worksheet. Like, so they've got the broader understanding of what this is about, even some of the prevalent stats, that sort of stuff. This can be emailed out. You don't have to, have resources spent photocopying, just emailing them out to different addresses, like through parents. So it's important that kids know that talking with someone is the best way of resolving anything. If they feel unsafe, best thing they can do is talk to someone that they trust, developing the safety network, using it. So as teachers, it's probably good at the beginning and end of a school term. So it's beginning of a term to kind of set the context about, you don't need to go and check, okay, who's on yours, who's on yours. It's kind of private. It's their business. If they want to share it with you, great. If you're on it, that's great, because you're there in the classroom, school days, which is fantastic. And to offer yourself, if you'd like to have me on your safety network, I'd love you to come and speak to me if you have a problem, and I'd love to help you address that. No problem at all. Before the school holidays, they might have different custody. They might be going to stay with a different relative. So encouraging them to look at who might be on their safety network over the holiday period, just so they can give that some thought and be prepared. Any questions about safety networks?
Not a question, but I know the police in town do a performance every year.
Yes,
So
they do.
To age
Yes,
children. Yeah, with
yes.
their crazy volleyball characters or whatever
Yes,
It's the best
yes.
thing ever. It really
I'm
is
trying to think
great.
of Scotty's surname. He's been doing it for many, many years. Oh, yeah. No, they're absolutely fantastic.
It's really great because it does teach kids that if they're in a situation where, and it really unpacks I've got sweaty palms, I've got butterflies in my tummy, I'm not feeling safe, what do I do? And it really describes for the kids how they can go about making themselves feel safe again and doing the 5 that they all, I think every kid then goes away with a little hand that they can write on their numbers and stuff. So
Awesome.
yeah, it is really good.
Yes, it's really good, very explicit. Excellent. That is unique to Toowoomba, let me tell you. So you're lucky if you can tap into that or get your kids to go along to that performance.
Yeah, I don't know not every school does it. I know my kids' school does it.
Right,
I haven't
right.
every school does it.
Yeah, if you can tap, it's the crime prevention unit at Toowoomba District. So or Darling Downs District, but based in Toowoomba. Okay, that's what a hand looks like. Okay, cautionary note. So this is with respect to all of the 4 messages. Make sure that your content and delivery is age appropriate. So obviously, bearing in mind the cognitive ability of the kids, what they know already, that sort of stuff. Prepare, not scare. Anything you teach kids in the safety spectrum should be confidence building, not fear evoking. So you want them to leave a conversation about safety feeling confident and competent that they can actually put in place and practically apply what you've taught them. If you freak them out with like the stats, don't share the stats with them that I shared with you earlier. You don't want to, fear evoking will just disempower them. Confidence will empower them. Transfer knowledge into safe behaviour through active participation and practice. Things like role playing. Things like saying, okay, in a classroom example, hey, Gemma did a great job of being really assertive then. Did you hear Gemma's assertive response? She was such a dolphin with that one. Can anyone tell me why that was an assertive response? So bring it out and show them what that looks like. Who had early warning signs in that activity? You know, that sort of stuff. We've got an exam coming up. I know you're going to get early. Using the lingo so they can understand it, but we know it's not a personal emergency because, you know, you're in control, that sort of stuff. But if you keep using the language, that's going to really help because it's going to connect. If you can put posters up around the classroom or get them to do their own posters, you know, that's a really cool thing as well. Teaching protective behaviours does not guarantee safety. So you could teach a child everything that you know, everything that I know, and unfortunately, it's not going to remove the risk. It will greatly reduce the likelihood, but it's not going to ever reduce the risk. Sometimes parents, particularly parents, think that if a child goes to a Bravehearts, I can't even think of the name of the lion. What's his name? Anyone know the lion's name? Ditto's Keep Safe Adventure. If they go along to a presentation or do the Toowoomba Police one, that means they know everything they need to know. Absolutely not. It's an ongoing thing. Rachel?
So like occasionally I'll have to have chats with parents at my place of work because, you know, you can get your kid just shorts and a t-shirt and think, you know, they're going to gymnastics, that's going to be fine if they wear shorts and t-shirts, but they're not thinking of like, oh, my child's got really skinny legs, so their shorts right up. Where is exposed. I mean, in gymnastics, they wear leotards as well.
Yeah.
And it's being able to go and have that conversation with the parent in a very, like, comfortable nature so that you're like, I don't want to, you know, alert you of anything, but next week, can we just make sure that they're wearing either bike shorts underneath their shorts or, you know, shorts over their Leo if this one's a little bit smaller or looking at getting them.
Yeah.
And you have to do it in a language safe way that if on listening ears can hear. And then rather than embarrassing the child and saying, going and getting them shorts is like positioning them so they're not in a compromised position. So like making them not feel like, you know, they've done something wrong or embarrassing. And it's as my, like then my job to position them or take out specific activities that are going to put them in a compromised position.
Yeah.
And like then letting the parent know quickly so that they're aware and that it's not their fault, that this happens all the time and, you know, it's a common mistake.
Even in like instructions at the start of the year about, you know, dress and have something that's really diplomatically worded about this is why we suggest this, you know, that loose shorts can cause, you know,
but like, you know, parents are just like, oh, shorts and a t-shirt, so like, you just don't think of it.
Yeah. Actually, the likelihood of parents reading stuff can be,
So it's very much just like being like, you know, it's not your fault, it's nothing wrong with the clothing, it's just we want to protect your child.
Absolutely.
We don't know who's going to be walking past or who is who in the crowd. This is everyone's saying.
Exactly. Yeah, no, very good point.
Really well.
Supportive strategies, so having, generally speaking, open, positive relationships with the kids in your class. Let's put it in the classroom context. Positive role modelling, so you show them what self-respect is, respect for others, assertive behaviour, being resilient. You know, they're seeing you at the front of the classroom doing this all day, every day. Positive behaviour rehearsal, where you're getting them to you know, role play. Minimising opportunities for abuse, many different ways. Like I was saying, if they're coming to you in the classroom and that sort of stuff, probably more for a parents thing than a teacher's, but that's probably as close as it gets for teachers. And for you guys particularly, acting if you suspect something's not right, having a conversation with the child, having a conversation with the parent about concerns you might have. One of the key indicators that something's not right, it might not be abuse, it might be something else happening, is a change of behaviour. A child that goes from being really quiet to really rebellious and acting out, or someone who is really extroverted to being really withdrawn. So if you're seeing that whatever change of behaviour, that's something that should be on your radar. Okay, handling disclosures. So this is if, it might come out in a conversation that you have if you've noticed a behavioural or physical indicator and you have a conversation with the child and they say, they indicate that something's happened. Remaining calm, really important. A natural reaction, particularly if you care for the child, and I'm sure that you would care for the child if they've been in your classroom, is to be shocked, act with some sort of disbelief, be really emotionally affected yourself. None of that is helpful for the child. So it's really having to be masking that and being calm and supportive are what the child needs. Listening without interrupting, giving them every indication with what you say and how you like your non-verbals, that you believe them. Even if in the back of your head you're going, really? Could this be happening? Because you're going through a process yourself of hearing some news that might be quite confronting. So it's natural to kind of question that, but don't let the child see that. Even if it turns out very unlikely, very, very, very unlikely for a child to lie about sexual abuse, likely for a child to tell you later that they lied because you didn't handle it well. Okay. Or what happened after wasn't handled well. So they'll say it didn't happen because they just want the whole thing to go away because it has brought up repercussions that they didn't anticipate. But vast majority of cases we know about, they'll be telling the truth the first time. Reassure, not your fault, do the right thing by telling. That's the most important line of all. Avoid leading questions. So somebody touched me. Was it daddy? No, you don't introduce anyone or anything or where it was. It just has to come from them. Question to confirm the need to report. You're not investigating. So you're just noting what they tell you. You're not asking leading questions. You just need to know that, yes, it's sufficient for me to report. So, and if they tell you anything that's kind of happened at home or, give you kind of any kind of idea that something's not right, that gives you reasonable suspicion to then report it. Don't confront the parents or the perpetrator, not your role. More people are trained to do that. Don't make promises you can't keep. You'll never have to go home again. You have to see that person again. Like, you have got no control unless you whisk them away and kidnap them. Don't do that. That's about the only way you can guarantee that. So I will do everything I can to help you. Yes, you can do that. It's really important to me that you're safe and, say things that will reassure without going that extra step and telling them what you can't do. Let them know what will happen next. I need to go and speak with the principal and, we might need to contact the police. And their job is to keep you safe. And depending what the circumstances is, depending on the seriousness of the situation, make detailed notes. If you've got your phone there, if you can audio record, you are legally able to, as long as you're privy to the conversation, you can legally record, which is great evidence. You don't necessarily need to tell the child. You might want to tell the child or ask their permission. If you don't audio record, time, date, place, the best of your recollection, what the child said, what you said, including any gestures that they made, that sort of stuff, that is incredibly helpful evidence should a prosecution take place. So that good record keeping from that initial disclosure is extremely important. And then report as per your reporting requirements. So basically within your school first, and your principal will, or deputy or whoever you report to, will make the call about what will happen next. Any questions at all about disclosure, Marcus?
Just being very practical, I suppose.
Yeah.
If hypothetically they said it's happening at home and this is now home time, take them to the principal's office rather than saying...
Depending on the seriousness. So if you think if they're going to go home now that they're at risk, then yes, I would be saying, can someone else come in and look after my client? You take them or someone takes them, and you gauge the seriousness of, what's happening then. That's like, I guess, akin to a drunk parent coming to pick up a child. Do you have the legal right? Like, so you just want to get police there straight away. So it's not you holding them back. That kind of is a 000 call kind of thing, because you need police there then. In your situation, depending on how long you've got before that 3 o'clock mark, but yes, it's an urgent response if the abuse that they're talking about is something that if you fear if they go home, they're at risk again. Yeah. So it's very situation dependent. And it can be a bit tricky, but I would err on the side of what's the worst case scenario? What could you do? And it's your job to report up, and your duty of care. You've ticked the box once you've reported up. You've absolved yourself of what you need to do. Where to from here? If you can. Yes.
Sorry, just back.
Olivia. Yes. Back.
I suppose a lot of, if a child did come up to you, they might say, I don't want you to tell anyone. And how do you, obviously that is that we need to report that.
Yeah.
But how do you get about that without losing that child's trust?
Oh, that's
told them, I don't trust you anymore.
That's a really good question, Olivia, and that's really hard, particularly if a child starts a conversation with, I want to tell you something, but I want you to promise me you won't tell anyone. Mm-hmm. You have to honestly tell them, because you cannot make that promise.
That's right.
So you have to tell them that you will do everything you can to support them and listen, but you cannot tell them that, but you can just give them every bit of convincing that it's so important that they tell you anyway.
Yeah.
but not make
Without
that
losing their
promise.
trust.
Exactly,
Yeah.
because the likelihood is if they start off like that you're going to have to tell.
Yeah.
Through our training at work, that is a question that always comes up, and we've been trying to say, basically, depending on what you disclose to me, I may need to take this, further. But and until I know what we're talking about, I'm not sure what level. Because also there could be kids who come up and go, "I need to tell you something." It's like, my dog died, and it's like, okay, well, I probably don't need to. Talk that up or anything, But so we've just always been told to say, obviously, once you tell me, I may need to tell someone, and I can't promise that I won't. It's going to just depend on what you tell me next.
Yeah. Reassuring that you're there for them, and
I actually was in a situation where a child came up, or a young person came up to me and told me something that was confidential, and as they were telling me, I picked up that it wasn't going to be something that I couldn't not tell anyone. So I sort of said that I was like, now listen, before you tell me exactly what happened, I need to let you know that we're going to have to go and talk to another person. I said, but I'll stay with you. Like, I will come with you. I will be with you through the whole thing. I said, do you still want to tell me? They told me anyway. And then we went up to the next person and they told them, but they only told them if I was sitting next to them, because they knew that they'd already told me.
And that's a great,
verify what they're saying.
Yeah, to have your support, like as Rachel described, that's gold. If it just takes for you to be with them, with the next person, generally it's you having to report separately. But if you take the child, or if the child needs to speak, or the child will need to speak with police potentially, or depending on the situation, other people. So if they want you to be a support person, then and you're happy to take on that role, that's really good if you could. Okay, last one before we get into my selfish stuff. Do you feel like you need to stand up and do a bit of a wiggle?
Yep.
No? Okay, stand up for a sec. I do have an exercise for you. So everyone stand up, shoulder, you put your feet shoulder width apart. And this is very silly, but it's something you can use in classrooms. I want you to write your first name with your pelvis. So... You guys look so awesome. Okay, and when you're comfortable and stretched, take a seat.
Yeah, I know. I'm sort of like,
Okay. So relay the safety messages in the different ways. We were talking about the teachable moments. Create a supportive environment. Be observant to children needing help and help them. Learn more through training, reading, consulting others. Lobby for a whole of school child protection program. So if what you're teaching in your classroom is mirrored every year that child goes through school, whether it is the Daniel Morcombe Children's Safety Curriculum, which very closely mirrors this content, whether it is this content, because there's lesson plans and worksheets that go with it, whether it is Michael Bernard, You Can Do It, Paula Barrett's, what's Paula's program? Oh my goodness, mental blank. It will come to me. It will come to me. She talks about green behaviours and red thoughts, green thoughts. Oh, it's a social emotional wellbeing program.
It's not the zone of regulation. Yeah, zone of regulation.
No. Friends is in the title. I will think of it and get back to you. Are there any questions before we move on to the video? Okay, I've got a 5-minute video to show you. Rod, could you help me set it up?
Who was the person that you said?
Paula Barrett. And she's based at West End. Friends for Life, I think it might be.
Friends Resilience? Is it?
Yeah, there's a different name. There's probably a few different.
Friends for Life.
Friends for Life. Okay. That's it's a social emotional wellbeing, and it talks about the way we think. And about like cognitive behavioural therapy, but in a really practical, light way for kids. Okay, I know it goes away, but we might just go for it anyway, just in the interest of time.
Safety Australia Incorporated is exploring 2 new safety initiatives to enhance the safety of children and other people in need of urgent help. You're invited to watch this short video and to complete the accompanying online survey. Your input will help to create a safer community. The first initiative is Safe Places, which are designed to provide easily identifiable and accessible places of safety for children and adults seeking help. People who feel unsafe for whatever reason will identify the Safe Place symbol in public places such as service stations and grocery stores. Upon entering the Safe Place, they will seek help from staff. The staff member will record some general information and will contact police. The person needing assistance will be invited to wait in an area of the premises monitored by CCTV. If the person appears to be in immediate danger, a lockdown procedure will be activated to protect them until police arrive. There are a number of proposed safeguards to ensure the safety and effectiveness of safe places. Organisations wishing to become a safe place must comply with a number of conditions, including publicly promoting their commitment to children's safety and having relevant policies and procedures in place, screening staff to ensure their suitability to render assistance and providing them with both initial and ongoing training, prominent positioning of the Safe Place signage, ensuring all public service areas are monitored by CCTV, and the ability to lock down the premises if needed. The effectiveness of safe places is dependent on generating awareness to ensure both children and adults know how to seek help and staff members know how to assist people in need. It's proposed that this will be done through radio and television advertising, prominent posters in schools and in public places, and via online resources available to download and promote to children by parents and carers, teachers, police, and other professionals and volunteers working with children. The second initiative is the Safety Signal, which is designed to provide children and adults with immediate assistance when they're not able to find a safe place nearby. The Safety Signal provides a clear signal to indicate to others that they are in danger and in need of urgent help. Children and adults seeking help are encouraged to go to a place where they can be seen by passers-by and start the signal, which is made by placing arms above the head, crossing forearms, and opening and closing hands. Community members who see someone making the safety signal are encouraged to render assistance to the person in need if they feel safe to do so. Call police. Unless necessary for safety, they're encouraged to remain in or move to a public area where they can be seen by others. People seeking help are instructed to provide general information to the person offering assistance, including their reason for seeking help, and wait for police to attend. If the person seeking help feels unsafe with the person providing assistance, they're encouraged to tell the person to leave them alone and to seek the assistance of others. If no one else is nearby, they're encouraged to go to a place that makes them feel safe and seek assistance there. Another version of the safety signal that is used internationally is placing a thumb across the palm and closing fingers over in a deliberate action. This secret signal can be conveyed to seek assistance without alerting the person who may be the source of danger. We believe there is a place for both versions of the safety signal and invite your feedback via the online survey. As with safe places, the effectiveness of the safety signal is dependent on generating awareness to ensure children and adults needing help know what to do, and that people who see the safety signal recognise it and know how to assist. Similar awareness-raising strategies are proposed. Thank you for your time to watch this short video. We hope you see the value in creating a community where help is readily available to those in need through safe places and the safety signal. Please click on the link provided to access the online survey. Together, we can create a safer community.
Thank you for watching that. I've got a QR code actually, and if you can go back. Yeah, fantastic. If you wouldn't mind doing the survey, but could I just invite feedback for a start about the safe places? So it's similar. You know, we were talking about the safety house earlier. So rather than having it on a house, we're talking about having it on, I guess in my mind, I'm thinking of McDonald's, Coles, Woolies, service stations, businesses that do have CCTV. And basically provides a place primarily for kids. But I've been speaking with some criminologists from Griffith Uni, and they see a real benefit for victims of domestic violence to be able to, as part of their normal life where they'd be going to these places anyway, to be able to seek help where they, you know, it's not questionable that they're going to get groceries or going to get petrol, that sort of stuff. Any general thoughts about safe places before we move on to the signals?
How do you plan to sort of incentivize these places to become these places? You know,
I guess good question. To make this work, we need, first of all, so that the survey is going out to see members of the community, particularly teachers and parents, to say, is this something you think would work? Is this something that you think if they existed, would you teach your kids? And that's what's in the survey, asking, would you think they'd recognise it? Would you teach them? If not, why not? That kind of thing. How effective do you think it would be if people did know about it, they were readily available, that sort of stuff. But then the next step is to make sure that we have got places that are willing to step up. And I guess from the initial inquiries I've made, to be that good corporate citizen, particularly places that are wanting to be child friendly, we're expecting positive response, but we're not guaranteeing it. For example, for somewhere like Coles and Woolies, rather than have every staff member trained, we're looking at having a duty manager. So people would go, okay, so every duty manager that's on would need to have the training, which would just be an online thing that they'd have to do. So nothing where they'd have to attend face to face, but, you know, it would be the other staff that would point them, you know, in the direction. So it does involve the training there is, and it's basically someone comes in seeking help, they contact the police and make sure that the person is somewhere they can be monitored. So there's no question of further safety risk by the staff member, essentially, by them going there. Does that answer your question, Joe?
Yeah, yes, but I also find that particularly in this day and age, a lot of businesses might be hesitant to become this for fear of legal proceedings.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I guess we'll have to, if it gets to that point, we'll definitely cross that bridge, and there might be some legal advice about, you know, once they contact police. I guess we'd expect places to do it anyway if we went and said, can you call the police, I feel unsafe, but it's formalising it. Like a 1, 2, 3, I'm seeing hands come up. Ashley?
I was just thinking when it talked about screening staff or whatever it is, I guess with that, so how do you plan on knowing, you know, you said that there are resources available online and things like that, you know, is there an acknowledgement form that they need to go through or something that they need to say to go, I'm proving that I have gone through this, because I feel like that, I mean, could be potentially an opportunity for someone to go into that area and say, I'm safe, but are they actually?
And that's the thing. We know child suitability cards are 5% effective because 95%. So there's nothing that will guarantee it. I guess it's in the child safe principles. There's 10 child safe principles that have come out of the Royal Commission into institutionalised child sexual abuse that are for all organisations, including schools working with children. And those principles give some, I guess, strategies about screening staff. So in the recruiting process, it's about questions to ask in when referee checking. Has this person worked with children before? Do you have any, asking referees, do you have any concerns, for example, about this child, this person around children? So nothing is going to ever 100% foolproof, you know, safeguard, but if we at least ask the questions, that's most likely to elicit a response that, oh, actually, I'm not really sure about that. That's, you know, it might.
And I think that would be good because, I mean, I even know my husband, like, as I've gone through this degree, like, as to how much, well, even myself, like, you sort of, until you're aware of it, you don't actually realise how serious or how relevant or, you know, how much you need to know this, like, what's out there. I feel like people can be oblivious. So, you know, I'm wondering, you know, like, the training, is it actually relevant to them? Are we guaranteeing? Well, you can't, as you said, there's not always a guarantee. Actual procedures are in place.
I think there's got to be a balance between what is able to be done that will hit the must knows rather than the nice to knows. So it'll be short and online, but hopefully it'll hit those main things. In terms of screening staff, it'll be maybe for some organisations it will be requiring a blue card. Lucy, you had a question.
My only thing was just in those safe places, if there was a way for them to communicate without being super explicit, because if they are in a situation where they're with that person, specifically, like, I guess, either in a domestic violence situation, if they're not allowed to be by themselves, or in a child where it is the parent that they're with, or
maybe even that, so the secret signal
and
may even be used in that situation, that we could maybe incorporate that as part of the training, that
just
in the conversation that we train people to look for that secret sign. There's some brilliant European videos actually on YouTube about the secret signal. Actually, an American one as well about a lady on a like a Zoom call, and she's telling a friend, she's talking about a banana cake recipe, and she's going, it's really, you've seen that? So, you know, that is for someone who knows what they're watching, it's such a distinct signal. I should probably get some links to those kind of things to provide you with, but that's
like that.
That's a subtle way,
a different way, because like if they are in a situation where, even because if it is such a wide initiative, then everyone is aware that that place is a safe place, then they go, oh well, I'm not going to allow that person to go there by themselves because they may go there for another reason, so I'll go with them. And then if they just have that kind of situation,
I get what you mean. That's right. They're not necessarily running away from someone, they can run in there by themselves.
Not always in that situation.
That's true.
No, that's good thinking, Lucy. Thank you. Was it Robin or Rachel? Sorry, Rachel.
Like in a situation where this does go through, like obviously there's going to be knowledge to people who are going to be the perpetrators, who are going to be involved with that, and how are the staff and the reaction time is going to be, in a sense of someone goes to a safe place and they can't lock down the building in time, and how to deal, like say the person is aggressive or they might not be, or like what are the steps that are going to be involved in ensuring that individual is definitely protected.
That's good.
Go into, say, I know a McDonald's is like that. Like that's going to take a substantial amount of time to lock down, and then on top of that, you've got the fact that there could be a numerous amount of people in there. How are you going to protect that one individual? And it's just, and then on the next thing was, what about for people who can't communicate their situation? Like if it is a young child, or if it's someone who, or if it's someone who doesn't speak English, like how are those things?
So communication difficulties.
Because they might not be able to identify someone or identify the situation appropriately for them.
Really good. Thank you, guys. You are the very first group that I've spoken with, because this has only been very recently developed. We're actually looking at promoting it as part of Child Protection Week, which is from the 5th to the 11th of September. So congratulations being the first group. Can we move to safety signals just in the interest of time, because we've only got a couple of minutes, Marcus?
There was something that really jumped out at me when I looked at the safety signals was the first one was, how do I put this? People don't like to look stupid even if it's good for them.
Yes.
I'm reminded of the Google glasses, which were fantastic. Even the tech nerds said, no, I'm not going to wear that. So the other thing is, they're talking about potentially there's a space for both. Simplify it, have one that can be secretive. And also that you won't look like an idiot doing it.
The thing is how to make it, and I guess the safety signal actually came from my work with Bruce and Denise Morecambe a long time ago, where the thought was, Daniel, for those who know the story of Daniel Morecambe, he was beside the motorway there, and he looked, the inquest came out with that there were lots of cars that passed him, and a lot of people saw that this young boy was looking very uncomfortable. The car that ended up being the perpetrator was thought to be down the road. So he kind of was aware of this suspicious car, and there were potentially opportunities for him to seek help.
And no one's going to see that, but they're going to see that.
Exactly. So while I don't think it's going to be used as much, and I agree with you, because it will take a dire kind of situation to kind of look like that, it has to be, I believe, distinctive, that people know, is someone waving? Or so where the secret signal has to be discreet and has to be, something that can be done. And one of the European examples is some wonderful examples of how it can be done. I totally take your point. I just don't know how we can actually get the benefit of being obvious that there's no question, because no one does this because it is so stupid, right?
You look like someone's going to look at you.
I guess making sure when you're doing the education process, pointing out that this one is particularly useful in these cases, and this one's particularly useful in these cases.
Okay. Yeah.
Negate that possibly.
Yeah. No, good point.
I'm also wondering, like, how realistic, I'm thinking of a little 5-year-old, how realistic is for me to see their hand like this?
Yeah, and that's why it has to be, I guess, a role playing about catching your eye and doing, and people will need to know, right? Everyone needs to know. Robin, you had a question or comment?
Further what Marcus was saying, on the flip side, that people don't want to look like an idiot and do a big signal like that. But then again, you might get a group of teenage boys who think it's funny.
Exactly.
And do that.
Exactly.
That misinformation.
That's like people who call 000, and there's many of those that are hoaxes. And we respond the same way. It's like, it's benefit of the doubt. And it's dealing with it. If it is a hoax, then, you know, there is an opportunity for police to prosecute and that sort of stuff. But
or at least educate them.
There's still consequences of, you know, like requesting help under false pretenses.
Exactly.
So, you know, I think in the same way, if you were to call 000 without the actual need to, as a joke, it, you know, would just be the same issue.
Exactly.
It's an emergency signal, and you're not in an emergency.
Exactly, Joe. Rachel.
I suppose also, this is me going that one step further and knowing a couple of the insights to like how disturbed people think, but having the education around like, you can respond to someone who's doing a safety signal or whatever like that, but you know, there is the chance that a perpetrator could do that to get someone to
and I guess, but the point is, it is, you're calling police straight away, so it is.
Like ensuring that it is that they call the police straight away.
It's, that reminds me of people pretending to break down so someone will come over to help and then doing. So yes, there is the risks of that, and we'll have to work out how to safeguard that. And that's why we say to people, it's only if you feel safe to do so. Even if you don't go and respond, if you're worried about that, call. If you're not with anyone, if you're by yourself, don't go and help, but call 000 instead.
It's knowing that protocol, because I know that people like just going to have that like intuitive action where they'll just be like,
yes, this person needs help. Yeah. Olivia?
Similar to that. Making sure the person who goes to help knows they're not there as like a psychologist or they're not.
So the first responder responsibility.
And they don't have to, what they're told, they don't need to, you know, deal with
expectations.
That on their own.
Exactly. It's just the conduit to call the police.
You might not be first aid trained, but you can sit there with them and
Sorry,
help
I've
them
got 2 minutes
feel
over. Okay, well, I'll leave you with, if you could please, both people in the room and online, if you could go through the QR code, and I've given the link as well to Rod to send out later if you prefer to do that. A whole lot of resources here. Sorry, those online I'm not sure if we can get resources to you, but help yourself to any of that. Take as much. There's 15 of these on a sheet, so generally 2. You take 2 for a class, like for as many classes as you would like. So I've got like just groups, and as I said, I've got primary is up the top and secondary is down the bottom. So I've just put primary there, secondary here, some posters there. Any final questions before? And thank you so much for that feedback. I've written down your notes, and I really value. Please also add that in your online, would be awesome as well. Any final questions before I get out of your hair? No, thanks so much for your time this morning, guys.
Thank you.
So Lisa's just got a question on
Second safety. Oh, for somebody, for children trapped in somebody's car. Oh, yeah, being pulled over by police at night. Okay. So Lisa's asked a question about a P-plater being pulled over, feeling unsafe, being pulled over by police at night. And if it's a marked police car, it's extremely unlikely that someone's stolen the police car, so I'd be pulling over anyway. If you feel unsafe, if you think maybe it's a plainclothes car, because sometimes people can get blue and red lights, drive to a police station or drive to a 24-hour petrol station or something where there is otherwise help there, rather than pulling over at the side of the road. road.
Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
have to show like some recognition? Like, do you just put your hazards on or something to show recognition of
That you're doing it, there's no accepted kind of thing.
Okay.
But you could probably do, that's probably not a bad
real,
idea,
like, if
Lucy.
it was a real pub, you don't want them to think that you're running off.
Exactly.
You're not.
But they're not going to, all they're going to do is follow you. They're not going to ram you or anything. So they're just going to follow you too. And they'll probably maybe get forecast to join in potentially if they think that you're a drink driver or you're trying to evade them or something. But as long as you're going to the nearest place and you're doing it for reasons because you feel unsafe, absolutely fine. Yeah. Good question. Thank you, Lisa.